Hey, welcome to the Coffee with the Doctors podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Chris,
And I'm Dr. Liesel.
and we shine a light on the powerful scholarship emerging from Michigan's practitioner scholars working in K-12 schools. In each episode, we sit down with educators, leaders, and researchers whose work is shaping classrooms, guiding policy, and transforming communities.
So grab your coffee, settle in, and join us as we elevate the voices, ideas, and innovations driving Michigan's educational future. All right, so Chris, what's on the agenda for this week?
Oh, okay. So, Dr. Lee, so for this episode of Coffee with the Doctors, we've been doing this thing where we first call out where in the state we want to go to. We're headed back to the west side of the state, but only this time. We'll be going to the state's treasure trove, the place with the pockets filled with plenty of pennies. That is Grand Rapids, home to the robber barons. I shouldn't say robber barons. That is probably a little partisan, but folk with deep pockets like the DeVosses. We're headed to Grand Rapids. Our guest, Dr. Shayla, hails from there and currently works for Grand Rapids organization in K Connect. And this week we'll look to explore her unique journey in and around education and the way she works for schools while not being in schools. Liesel, can you kick us off by giving her actual bio?
Absolutely. So, Dr. Shayla has a pathway through the Midwestern universities that brought her from working as a social worker, not actually as a teacher,
Mm,
but she finished up her educational studies at Michigan State University in the Dell, and she is at K Connect, which we'll learn more about today. And her focus is on policy. So, um, I think something powerful about Dr. Shayla is really her power, her belief in her power of teamwork. She's deeply rooted in her faith and her family, and she speaks systemic change wherever she goes.
sweet. Hey, so Dr. Shayla, we're going to start off with a quick question that we start every show with, and that is this. When speaking of coffee, are you a Folgers kind of girl or a fair trade kind of girl?
Okay, well, thank you. First, just thank you, Dr. Chris. Thank you, Dr. Liesel, for having me. And also for that very just heartfelt, Liesel, that heartfelt intro. I appreciate y'all. When it
Oh my.
comes to coffee,
Oh my.
it's actually not coffee, this is water. But when it comes to coffee, um, neither one of those really floats my boat,
Okay,
but
okay.
my grandfather, one day I remember going to his house, and I'm trying to think if I was in the Dell program at the time or not. I can't remember. But I remember going to my grandparents' house, and I was like, oh, I'm so tired and I'm exhausted. And my grandfather's like, let me make you a cup of coffee. And he pulls out his Folgers can and he, rations it out and he puts it on the stove with some water. And I'm
That's right.
like, okay. All right, Grandpa. Yes, I'm gonna drink this coffee because you made it for me. So I will say that, and that was some of the strongest coffee I ever had. So I will say Folgers, I have the most history with. I
Okay,
have
there we go.
I will pick Folgers today.
Okay, well, that's a historic experience of Folgers. Was that instant coffee that he gave you, or
That
was
was
that
instant. I mean,
okay?
and it hit me instant.
All right,
Okay.
presto, presto. Well, look, we asked that question because Liesel and I, uh, for years, or not years, well, years ago, we started this process of working up really, really early, 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and you had to have a cup of coffee ready because what you were doing, if you were part of MSU Doctor of Educational Leadership program and you had made it through the second year, you started to work on that thing we call the dissertation of practice. And the only time you, if you are a professional slash parent slash spouse slash grown person, the only time you have to work on a billion page paper is the morning or the midnight. And so Liesel and I chose the morning. And those reps really, really started to become part of our formation, our being, because the morning time is where we just continue to be curious and work on our scholarship, work on our practice. And we kept that up, and that's largely what's inspired this podcast. And so I think with that said, many of our guests may be familiar with the Dell program and the DIP process at this point in time, because this is going to be episode, I think, 8. But others aren't. And so we'll continue to talk about the Dell in other episodes. But for now, you are a graduate of the Dell. And so we want to take just a little bit. Can you talk to us about your process during the Dell, or maybe talk about your research firstly? So is that a good question? Maybe talk about your
Absolutely.
research. What did you talk about for your dip?
Yeah, so I worked with three other esteemed classmates at the time, and they are now, I will just shout them out, Dr. Sorochi, Dr. Lyons, and Dr. Cotton.
Mhm.
And at the time, we all were, so the three of them, they were actually working at Michigan State University. And I was a community-based partner that was situated between the K-12 system and the higher ed system. And so we all, came together and really reflecting on what our experiences were and what the experiences were of the students that we were serving. We knew we had to amplify the voices of the young people, right? We had to amplify the voices of the students. And so the title of our dissertation in practice, it was on informal mentoring. And that title was Guiding Students of Color the Way They Want and Need at Michigan State University.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and we conducted 20, I guess, semi-structured interviews with our students. And it was affirming in terms of what we thought we would find. But when I tell you, we were really looking to put some I guess some scholarship and just some academic backbone behind the things that seem to be invisible within our roles. And so when you think about students of color and their need or desire to one, see somebody like themselves when they walk into a PWI. Now, this was so real and so deep for us. We actually crafted positionality statements and included that in our dissertation, and we inserted some elements of our own storytelling. I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
it was just a way to really, we had to be reflective within our entire just like data collection and data analysis process, because there was a heightened opportunity for
Mm,
bias, right? So we had to really be intentional within our, thematic analysis during some of the familiarization space, being able to just sit, reflect individually and with one another. And so it was a crazy year, but what kept us grounded were the voices. And yeah, that was a good time. I wouldn't have wanted to do any other focus area, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it with anyone else, because I think at the time we were the only, Dale, in our cohort, we were the only people of color, and we um we were in a time, we didn't know we were going to be in a time where those informal supports were going to serve to be critical levers of students deciding to stay in school or not, um in 2020, right? So Dr. Lisa and I, we were laughing because we had shirts that we created for our cohort, all 12. We were like, yes, we have 2020 vision. Okay, I got the shirt on now. Okay, to God be the glory. I didn't know I was going to be able to fit it. But we had 2020 vision, and we could have never seen what was coming, how our education systems were going to be hit, and how students, particularly students of color, were going to be even that much more discouraged to pursue post-secondary education. And so, yeah, that was the gist of it.
Hey, that's good. That's good.
I think you
Uh,
talked about, I mean, what a deeply personal, right, journey through all of that research as well. And I think adding on that you were also your dissertation group, what you added to the rest of our cohort was that you were kind of that higher ed and to and through, whereas the rest were really actively working in the K-12 spaces. So personally, I learned so much from being able to collaborate and learn from your team there. Um, what you talked a little bit about some of the research findings were really validating. Were there any pieces that were surprising to you or were unexpected that has helped shape kind of your next steps with supporting students and systems?
Yeah, I think for me, because and I'm just, speaking on behalf of our group, right? I think that we were so deeply entrenched in supporting students that a lot of it felt like just regular old conversation, conversations that we were having on a daily with young people. But what really gave me just an added layer of appreciation for our work is when we would be sitting in interviews and you would hear young people reflect on the people who kept them at the university, right? Like the conversation with mom
Mm.
or you know the the neighbor or community member that I got connected to outside of the university in Lansing, and they invited me to their house for the holidays because I didn't have the opportunity to go home and see my family, overseas. And so it was just, again, if you want to understand the impact of said system, you have to speak to the people that are in that system, that are impacted by it on a daily. And so this just gave us another way to see MSU through students' eyes, right? And so that was, I think, not necessarily surprising in terms of hearing those stories, but it was just one of the best parts of the work that we did. We also, thinking about some of our implications for practice, we talked about this need to normalize informal mentorship and roles. And so one of our limitations of our work was that we only spoke to students. We didn't speak to advisors or, support staff at universities. And so we weren't able to fully gauge the invisible tax
Mm.
that we knew existed for, people of color working in these roles. And, you had that student coming in your office, hey, you busy? Can I talk to you about this?
no.
You know, right? Or, even how the university sets this certain time limit for connection points with like the financial aid officers or things of that nature. And understanding that, a young person was literally leaving those interactions and going to find this mentor,
Mhm.
right? I don't know what they meant by this. They only gave me 15 minutes. How do I set up a longer meeting if I need them, or who do I call, or what do I do? So just this role of informal mentorship and navigating higher ed and the need to call that out a bit more at the university level normalizing it, equipping community-based organizations and community partners to have language around persistence, encouragement, etc. Hey, when your barber asks you, did you complete your FAFSA this year? You're like, what? Right. But being able to have a communal experience around post-secondary was one of the recommendations that we had as a result of what we heard.
Mhm.
Well, Dr. Shayla, I think what's interesting about how we kind of structure the show is we do the first segment talking about scholarship, and the second one is about practitionership. Before we move on to that second one, you were in the Doctorate of Educational Leadership. I'm wondering what steps led you to taking that path to become a scholar in that way. Understand that if you came from a background of social work, you could have easily went into uh, another social science in that way. How did you end up at MSU doing that program?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Chris. So I would I would say this. There were really two things that fed my decision to pursue Dell. So one of those was that, my senior year of high school, I was very blessed to receive something called the Gates Millennium Scholarship. And that allowed me to go all the way up to the Dell program and complete the Dell program for free. So yeah, there was about a
And I get it. All right,
So
okay.
deserved.
Next question.
So that was, that when you think about even someone like me,
Mhm.
graduating high school, I had a larger family role, oldest child, right? Type stuff. Um, when it came to what I would do and who I would become, my parents always emphasized the value of education. It was always like, your education is the one thing that no one can take away from you. I remember them
Mhm.
saying that often. And so when I, when I was preparing to complete high school, I knew that I was going to college because I had been trained to believe that I could go to college.
Okay.
Um, but I didn't know where I was going. I was like, well, let me just stay close to home, and do that. But the Gates Scholarship really opened up an opportunity for me to explore, a broader landscape as it relates to my post-secondary options. So I ended up going to the Ohio State University and I received my bachelor's of social work there. And I only knew this thing about myself. I wanted to help people. I didn't know how, I didn't know what, but that's all I knew. I want to help people. Fast forward, when I'm completing, I end up getting connected to the Boys and Girls Club of Columbus. And out of school time work had already been in my fabric, right? Like I would go home for the summers, and I would coach little league softball and I would do all these things with young people because that's what my father, he was very engaged. He coached basketball for years. He works at a school now. So I'm surrounded by educators and I knew the role that things like in school time and out of school time played for me. So this was me giving back. So I'm at the Boys and Girls Club of Columbus. That ends up being my big girl job. Like I don't know who goes to college to just go and work at in youth development, but here I am,
Mhm.
Ohio State degree, and I am, working in youth development at Boys and Girls Club. And I do that for about 2 years or so. Gates Millennium Foundation is reaching out like, hey, do you want to keep going? If so, these are the 7 areas that you can go and pursue a graduate, degree in. Most of them were STEM related. I was like, yep, nope, not me. But but education stood out. And the reason education stood out is because I was already working with youth. I had such a passion for young people and really in just reflecting on my career trajectory, I have always been K-12 adjacent. Even if I
Mhm.
haven't been in the classroom directly, which I have gained classroom experience both at the post-secondary and K-12 level. And I did that through, the different programs that I was a part of. When I went to Purdue University, it was a requirement to finish. And so that's when I started to pursue education, leadership, and administration. And from there, it was like I got into post secondary. I got into community based supports for students going to and through college. And then the Dale program popped up, right? I don't know how on my news feed. And I reached out to some of the faculty members to have, 30-minute conversations to see if I would be a good fit for the program. And full transparency, I did get a no. I did get a no, you're not a good fit for this program. So I'm not going to tell anyone who, but I did get a no. Yes.
Oh, names.
Um, and that really could have been the defining, moment was that no. But given how I was raised, it just couldn't be, right? So I had already scheduled to speak with Dr. Tara Vincent Chambers. And I was like, well, let me just keep this meeting. And hearing about her work on, just the racial opportunity cost and all of that, I was like, this sounds like what I would love to do, right? Like this feels like my focus. And I asked her, I'm like, well, do you think I'm a good fit for this program? Because I've heard a no. She
Ooh.
was like, it's an absolute yes. Please apply. And that was
Dr.
it.
Sarah.
That was it. Tara came in, saved the day. She saved the day for me. But it wasn't until I met now my dissertation group, right? It wasn't until
Mhm.
I met them on that
Come on.
first day that I really felt that it was a yes. Like I really felt like I belonged there. And a lot of that was around their focus and the fact that they were not in they were in their roles at Michigan State. And so to me, that felt like affirmation or confirmation. And I do believe, Liesel, even with hearing you talk about us learning from each other, I wonder what it would have looked like to have a little bit more emphasis on the fact that there was a continuation in a system that we could have, discussed a little bit more from K-12 into post-secondary. Yeah, and I guess maybe that's like my systems brain thinking about, it doesn't just stop, right? It carries on. And how do we hold students up in that transition?
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. I do remember kind of saying that or hearing that the four of you were kind of that higher ed, like, because there is a program at MSU, the Hale, right? But that wasn't really like they chose to combine it. But yeah, how do we really think about P20 plus systems that,
Mhm.
I think why do we have these boundaries and we stop in these different places when we know so many of the things that you've just talked about with informal mentoring,
Mhm.
the kind of invisible tax, like
Dr.
making so
Chambers.
many different connections between work that
Yeah.
Chris had done, but also other guests and our colleagues that have come on the podcast around the power of prioritizing and elevating student voice, and that without it we are completely missing the mark.
That's it. Yeah. She said no, Liesel.
I
No.
know, I know. I'm still stuck on that too. But
Yeah.
you know what? Let's stay stuck on
We should do an expose
yes.
pod.
She might have been mentioned in almost every podcast.
Really?
Oh, in all different ways.
Oh my
Yeah.
Hey,
goodness.
right now, listen, we're not affiliated at this point in time. So we just get to talk about the really interesting research and practitioner scholarship. I'm going to use that as our segue. If the first part of the show was about your scholarship and you, and I think you did probably one of the best jobs that we've done so far, just really talking about how the scholarship is an expression of your journey as well, or at least I'm seeing that overlap. The second part of the show is just about practitionership or how you turned that big brain stuff that you did at the university into actual wins, gains for communities that you serve. I think the best way for us to maybe segue to that is maybe if you could talk to us a little bit about your maybe your journey to K Connect, what
Mhm.
K Connect is, and in what ways does it work to improve our educational system in Michigan? In what ways do you work for that end or towards that end? Big
Yeah.
question. Start anywhere you can.
No, no, thank you so much, Dr. Chris. That was a big question, but I got you. I got you. So I'm thinking back to, the role that I had when I was completing the Dell program. I was a part of an initiative out of the Office of Our Community's Children. OCC is a public-private partnership office between the city of Grand Rapids and Grand Rapids Public Schools. And so at that time, I was leading the Two College Through College initiative. And we had a place, so there was a physical place where, scholars and their families could come and get one on one assistance through the college, to and through the college process, right? But then also, there was this systems shift element to that. And that was collectively bringing together higher ed partners, community based partners, businesses, local government, and K 12 system all at one table saying, hey, our students getting to and through college is everybody's business, right? It's not just post secondary, it's not, and we were having this argument in our community, and I'm sure this is much like other communities around, we get our students ready for college and we send them off to you, and then they don't succeed. So
Mm,
this is on post-secondary end. And post-secondary saying, well, K-12 system, they're not really prepared when they come to us. So we were having that in our community. And Two College Through College was saying, nope, we're all responsible, because guess what, if a student goes off and they don't complete, they come back to this community, right? And
yeah.
so being able to have this community aspect around completion, and post-secondary success. So that was the work that I was doing when I completed Dell. K Connect was a part of that work at the time. And so I sat around K Connect, which is a system building collective impact backbone organization. And so, like, what was that to me, a practitioner at the time, right? I was like, they were really supporting me and elevating beyond my programmatic role. And
Mm,
yes, I was providing direct services. Yes, I was, supporting students and seeing anecdotal, data, and just, it was great. But there was a larger system that we had to address. And I didn't really understand how to do that work until I got exposed to that through K Connect. So that was my experience as a network member. Fast forward, Dell program, we completed in 2020. I leave the workforce for a couple of years in 2020, going, out of 2021 into 2022. And I left the workforce for a number of reasons, but one of my primary roles was becoming a mother. So that was something that I had held off on till I finished the Dell program, really. And it was really truly a blessing and a miracle for me to be able to have, Gia. So now I had two girls at this time, because I'm a bonus mom too. And just bless Kennedy's heart because she had to bear with me through the Dale program. But yeah, so fast forward, I leave the workforce. I stay a co-chair of K Connect's high school to career work group at the time because I was still, even in not being in the role that I was in with to college through college, I'm still supporting students one-on-one. I'm still helping students. It was just ministry for me. I just truly loved it, right? So K Connect's like, hey, we have this postdoc fellowship. And we think that, you would be great for it. And I'm like, okay, wonderful. What's the focus area? They say community engagement. I'm like, well, I can do that, right? I can do that, sure. And then I get there and they're like, and it's policy and advocacy. And I was like, oh, wonderful. And, this was just an opportunity in my career for a name to really be put to some of the things that I was already doing within two college through college. And so I'm in this fellowship. My role is to build this shared policy agenda for this collective impact organization. K Connect represents over 250 organizations in its network, primarily situated in Kent County, and some across the state of Michigan. And when you think about what collective impact is, really what it is, it's a structured approach to solving complex issues, but not in a vacuum, not in a silo, having different sectors committing to the work and building the shared desire, the shared goal that we have for our community. And so there are, I mean, high level, 5 real conditions of collective impact. You have to have a common agenda, which are our founding documents at K Connect. We have a new version of it called our Common Agenda 2.0, where we identify just activities, 6 different activities that we're working towards in building systems change in Kent County. Shared measurements, so our data dashboard is a major part of how we support partners in understanding the data of our community. Mutually reinforcing activities, communication, and then backbone. And that's what we are. We're a true backbone. We do not have any programmatic efforts out of K Connect. And we seek to amplify the things in our community that are working. So we align with what's working in our community around systems change, and we design in the gaps. And when I say we, I mean our network, not just our backbone team, but we do have a great team of about nine of us on our team. And then Dr. Chris has actually served as one of our PACE or Policy Advocacy Community Engagement Fellows. So he's done a lot of the work in helping us build and shape the policy work. And we understand that because of the limitations of our backbone team, we need subject matter expertise in these areas. So ways in which we contribute to shifting education or supporting systems change in education, we give the data to our education leaders, right? We work through that data. We help support community engagement efforts, right? We also lift up our policy agenda has 5 out of 7 policy priorities geared at education. And so things like a fully funded opportunity index, or even, out of school time right now, the governor's executive budget calls for like a $60 million dollar increase in out of school time. And so we're advocating, we're working to build the agency of our network to also advocate. And yeah, just being that, again, neutral convener where we can hold diverse perspective, but not one that seeks neutral outcomes, right? So, yeah, does that
Wow,
do it?
so powerful. No, I just think it's so powerful. You've done a beautiful job of zooming in and out and how the work that you have done and all parts, right? Your winding path has taken you to where you are. Like I see those key elements and threads, right, that have come through. I think in a lot of communities, and I support districts all around the state, um, I think many are trying to create those kinds of supports and partnerships to support children and families all along the pathways. What kinds of advice would you give to other communities who really are looking to build and sustain similar efforts to the kind of work that you've been doing through K Connect?
Yeah. That's a great question. And I would say that, one thing that K Connect has been diligent on, and that is, over 13 years of existence for our organization, but that is making the case for why backbone organizations matter.
Mhm.
And not just, right, you have to do that two-way, right, with
Mhm.
community and building trust and network weaving and doing the collaborative work with intentionality. Uh, but then also with your philanthropic partners. I think, Dr. Chris, you mentioned how philanthropically rich this Kent County community is, right? And so we've had to make the case for why philanthropic partners should be pouring into backbone organizations. And the reality is that a backbone has the capacity to hold the vision, hold that shared vision, and to keep partners aligned and to keep partners moving. We will talk our way out of movement, right? We do it all the time in our community. Managing and translating the data. Also, and that's not just quantifiably, right? But it's also the quantitative, the stories.
Hmm.
Stories are data with soul, right? And so being able to add in that layer of understanding, facilitating collaboration, that neutral convener, and now more than ever, keeping equity at the center.
Hmm.
We are a nonprofit organization, and I do believe, right, with so many different threats that are coming down the pipeline, especially for nonprofits that are equity focused, K Connect has been uniquely positioned, I believe. And that is because of I think it's the work that we're doing right now, but I think at our core, foundationally, we had those different sectors at the table committing to equity. And even if their organization might not be amplified around that right now, they know that they've been a part of something that is. So that would be my my advice for communities, especially in the polarized environment that we're in politically. Neutral facilitation is a requirement. It just is.
Powerful.
What's on the big focus for K Connect as it pertains to schools at this point in time? We know that in the state of Michigan, as you already alluded to, we've got some big challenges. Um, we think about last year's fiscal crisis with the budget not coming out until December. I'm joking. But the budget did come a little bit late. We know that part of why that budget came out so late is because there was a lot of talk about transforming the budget to reduce particularly funds for our most needy. That didn't end up happening, but that was part of the discourse. Just given those budgetary items, what are some of the commitments at this point in time that K Connect wants to lift up and focus on, and maybe engage other communities in, or other communities around Michigan, that is?
Yeah. So I think that we are in a time where, specifically for K Connect, in our community, we're seeing, right, things like increased graduation rates. We're seeing things like, modest increases, right, in maybe post-secondary experiences. But I don't know if Liesel or Chris, if one of you said the word transformative, like
Yeah.
when I think about what the transformative power that we have, it doesn't feel like there's much. Oftentimes with the policy in the policy landscape, I'm hearing stability. We want
Mhm.
stability. We want stability. We want stability. But the beauty for me is that some of the things that are in play now that happened before, you know, um, before right now. um, were actually transformative things. And so when you talk about, oh, we need stability for something like the opportunity index, like we know that that transformed how we see K-12 being funded. We know that the opportunity index, it provides clear pathways for the students who need the most dollars to get those dollars, right? With the band system. Now, what does it take to fully fund an opportunity index? And will we see that over the next 2 to 5 years? I don't know. I don't know about that. But right now, we can continue to advocate for those increases, right? We're a part of different things like the Blueprint, the Impale group that is pushing for equitable education funding through the Opportunity Index. Um, there's also something out right now that, you know, the education budget, the student aid budget, really was one of the original stopgap budgets,
Mhm.
about 15 years ago for post secondary. And so being able to um, protect those dollars, right? Like there's conversations and things that are happening around that. And so K Connect role in really amplifying all of these things is one, making sure our network has ways to get involved. Um, Understanding that it requires not just bringing opportunities to them, but ensuring that they're equipped. So we have a technical assistance partner, Michigan League for Public Policy, that's been very helpful and critical with that. But then also we recognize where our partners might not be able to speak up
Mhm.
right now. And so we also hold this responsibility of, our president, Salvador Lopez, will say this, sometimes we get the tomatoes thrown at us. And I
Mhm.
was like, I don't want anybody throwing tomatoes at me. Like, I don't like that. I don't like it one bit.
Title of the show. I don't want those tomatoes.
I don't want tomatoes thrown at me. What are we talking about? But but really what he's saying, is that sometimes we have to be in that front line. And again, this is around saying you have a backbone organization. We don't have this programmatic tie, right? We don't have like we can say like this is how we are standing and making sure it is aligned with what our partners are telling us we need to stand for.
Mhm.
Making sure it's aligned with that shared vision and goal that has been established by our community, the thing that we are charged with managing, supporting, and growing, right? And so I would say, those are some of the things, Dr. Chris, that are on our radar. But we're also always leaning into our subject matter experts, Dr. Chris, Dr. Liesel, tell us, what our focus should be as well. I'll also include diverse educators, working on that and looking to continue the understanding, growing the understanding we have of how the different efforts like the West Michigan Teacher Collaborative, the work that's happening at Grand Valley, Shades of Strength, et cetera, Educators of Color Network, like how all of those things working in tandem with like grow your own supports and things like that at the state. Like,
Mhm.
what is the, how do we study those and see what the impact has truly been? And then so yeah, so that's a big one. And then I will also say just keeping students safe and well
Mm.
is major for us. So, from mental health, health in general, to ensuring that our practices are aligned with what keep young people safe. Those are also things that are coming our way too.
Powerful.
I know.
Grateful we've been able to spend this time chatting and learning together, Dr. Shayla.
Like a mic drop episode. That's
I
that's tough.
know, I know.
That's tough.
Um, well, you know that we like to end with kind of what are you currently reading, right? So we've all been so informed and engaged by scholarship, and as well as just like the professional literature. Like, what kind of things are you listening to or reading? And we know that you are a busy
Or writing.
professional or writing. Like, you are a mom of young children and middle grade child.
Mhm.
Um, what's activating your brain recently?
Whew, besides the children books that
Right.
Chicka chicka boom boom. Mm, mm,
Right.
mm, mm,
will there
mm,
be enough room? Yeah.
mm, mm, mm.
Besides that, um, one thing I will, okay, so I'd been given street data. You
Oh,
all, okay, yep, so street data, but
yeah.
there seems to be a next step, and it's called pedagogies of voices.
Oh,
Yeah, so it's street data and the path to the student agency.
Mm.
So
okay.
even getting back to the ties of our dissertation and the value we hold around student voice and experience, I think that this part two is what really will feed my soul and my scholarship. Uh, as it relates to what I'm writing, I don't know. Do y'all just write after the Dell program? Like, are y'all like, yeah, we just write?
We tried.
That was kind of some of the premise of the early
Yeah.
morning coffee with the doctors is having a thought partner and an accountability buddy to do some of this piece. And it was Chris's wife, Stacy, who named us like coffee with the doctors. She's like, you all say you're writing, but you just kind of like sit around and talk about educational stuff and drink coffee on Zoom. And so then we just decided to formalize that.
I love it. I love it. I so love it. Yes. Um, so I can sit around and have a lot of the conversations and putting paper to pen to paper. I'm like, what am I doing that on? So I do have a couple of personal projects that I'm working on right now. My husband and I were working on some things around marriage ministry, and then in reflecting on just even my academic experience, my personal and professional growth, and why I even felt like I needed to go and get a doctorate degree to be significant, right? Like I felt like I had to do this. It was and so even examining some of that and why I hold that. So that's a personal piece that I'm working on. And so my hope is to be complete, in 2027. Professionally for K Connect, we are in the process of we have an ebook called the Live Pay ebook, and it amplifies this need to revere lived experience as a form of expertise. And it gives compensation rates to do that are tied to Alice data coming out of Kent County. And so we have that, but the goal is to build a larger resource around how to do equitable community engagement. So that is also something that I am working on writing.
That's awesome. We're going to be looking for that.
Yes,
She
I
said.
can't wait. Look, let me put the link in the chat for Live Pay.
Yes, yes, absolutely. We'll put it in our show notes. So powerful.
Well, look, Dr. Shayla, thank you for joining us today. And I guess I'll close us down with our sign off by saying thank you all for joining us on this episode of Coffee with the Doctors, where practitioner scholars help us rethink what education can be. We'll see you next time for another conversation at the intersection of research, leadership, and practice.